The brutal truth about married women that most men overlook. There's an unspoken brutal truth about married women that few men truly see. It's not that they are weak. It's not that they lack morals. It's that human nature is wired for temptation. No one wakes up one day and decides to betray everything they've built. But betrayal is rarely a single, conscious choice. It's a slow, creeping erosion of boundaries, a series of seemingly innocent moments that add up to something irreversible. A lingering glance, a casual conversation, a text message that makes her heart beat just a little faster. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. They call it the slow erosion of boundaries, a step-by-step unraveling, one thought at a time, until one day she looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes the woman staring back at her. So why are some married women so easy to lure in? And more importantly, how do they justify it to themselves? That's exactly what we're about to expose. Number 1. The unspoken void. Why some married women seek external attention. Great marriages are partnerships. It can't be a great marriage without being a partnership. Helen Mirren. At its best, marriage is a fortress, built to withstand time, trials, and temptations. But not all marriages remain as strong as they once were. Some women, despite their vows, find themselves drawn to attention outside their marriage. And more often than not, it's not just about physical attraction, it's psychological. The biggest mistake people make, assuming these women are looking for an escape. In reality, many are searching for something they lost along the way. Human beings are wired for connection. Women, in particular, have a deep-rooted need for emotional intimacy, not just physical presence. In the early days of marriage, that intimacy is intoxicating. The late-night conversations, the stolen glances, the feeling of being seen. But over time, routine takes over. The deep conversations fade into logistical discussions about grocery lists and bills. Passion gives way to duty. And worst of all, she starts to feel invisible. This is where the danger begins. Dr. John Gottman, a renowned relationship psychologist, explains that the silent killer of relationships isn't conflict, it's indifference. When a woman no longer feels noticed by her husband, her subconscious mind starts seeking validation elsewhere, sometimes without her even realizing it. People will do anything to avoid being lonely, even if it means losing themselves in the process. Mitch Albom. A simple compliment from a stranger, a conversation with a man who actually listens, a fleeting moment where she feels interesting again, and suddenly, that tiny interaction feels like oxygen. After years of suffocation, marriage provides stability, but stability, if left unchecked, can become monotony. In psychology, this is called the Coolidge effect, the idea that novelty triggers desire. Both men and women are wired to crave excitement. And if a woman has spent years in a predictable routine, if every day feels the same, if every interaction is rehearsed, then even the smallest spark of something new can feel electrifying. Not because she doesn't love her husband, not because she's a bad person, but because she misses the thrill of feeling wanted. We are most alive when we are in love. But love is not just about being together. It's about being chosen, again and again. F. Scott Fitzgerald. When a woman feels pursued, when she feels that undeniable power over a man's desire, it reminds her of a version of herself she thought was lost. The younger version, the confident version, the woman who felt effortlessly attractive. And so, even if she never intends to cross a line, she may start inching closer to it, because in those fleeting moments, she feels alive again. Another overlooked reason why some married women become vulnerable to external validation: loss of identity. After marriage, many women feel like they are no longer individuals. They become someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caretaker. Their identity shifts from who I am to others. Before marriage, she was a mystery, an individual, a woman with dreams, interests, and passions. After marriage, she becomes defined by her roles. While these roles are beautiful, they can also be restrictive. If a woman no longer feels like her own person, she may start seeking interactions that remind her she is more than just a wife or a mother. And sometimes, that interaction comes in the form of another man. Number 2, the justification game. How the mind excuses betrayal. The mind will always find a way to justify what the heart has already decided. Anonymous. No one wakes up one morning and decides to betray their marriage. That's not how it works. When a married woman starts engaging in emotionally or physically risky behavior, it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow, slippery process, one that is justified in the deepest corners of her mind long before it manifests in real life. Because here's the truth: guilt is an unbearable weight, and if someone can convince themselves that what they're doing isn't really wrong, they no longer have to carry that weight. So how does this happen? How do married women rationalize crossing the line? At first, everything feels innocent. It's just a little attention. What's the harm? I'm just talking to him. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like I'm cheating. I'm just enjoying the moment. The human brain is a master of self-deception. If something feels good but contradicts our morals, the mind creates excuses to bridge the gap. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the tension that arises when our actions contradict our beliefs. And when that tension becomes unbearable, the mind bends reality to protect itself. The easiest person to fool is yourself. Richard Feynman. So, a woman who was once completely loyal starts playing mental games. She downplays her actions. It's just flirting. It's not like I'd actually do anything. She shifts the blame. If my husband paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need this. She compartmentalizes. This has nothing to do with my marriage. This is just for me. But here's the real danger. The more she justifies, the further she goes. For many married women, the first betrayal isn't physical. It's emotional. Late-night texts, deep conversations, sharing struggles with another man instead of her husband. At first, she tells herself it's harmless. But emotional intimacy is powerful. When a woman shares her heart and mind with another man, she has already started detaching from her husband. Cheating isn't always a physical act. The moment you start keeping secrets from your partner, you've already crossed the line, unknown. And once she convinces herself that she deserves this, there's no going back. I've sacrificed so much for this marriage. I deserve to feel good again. He's ignored me for years. If he doesn't care, why should I? I've been faithful for so long, and it's gotten me nowhere. What's the point? At this stage, the emotional connection she has formed with another man feels more real than her marriage. And once she believes her actions are justified, nothing can stop her. Because once the mind finds a reason to say yes, the body will follow. And once the line is crossed, there's no going back. Number 3. The breaking point. The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. Samuel Johnson. Every story has a point of no return, a moment when there's no more just talking, no more innocent flirting, no more rationalizing. The game is no longer a game, it becomes real. And the scariest part, most women don't even realize when it happens, until it's too late. In psychology, there's a concept called threshold theory. It explains why people who swore they'd never do something eventually end up doing it, because the hardest part isn't doing it, it's doing it for the first time. The first time she sends a message she knows she shouldn't send. The first time she meets up with him, just as friends. The first time his hand lingers a little too long and she doesn't pull away. That's the moment everything shifts, because after that first time, the second time is easier, and the third. And before she knows it, what once felt forbidden starts to feel normal. We are what we repeatedly do. Aristotle. Here's the biggest lie people tell themselves when they're on a dangerous path. I can stop whenever I want. But can they? Not really. Because once something triggers an emotional response, it becomes addictive. Neuroscientists have found that romantic and sexual attraction activate the same brain pathways as drug addiction. The dopamine rush of a new connection is intoxicating, like a hit of something she didn't even realize she was craving. So even if she tells herself this is the last time, she'll find a reason to go back. Because at this point, it's no longer about the other man. It's about the feeling she gets when she's with him. The shift from guilt to strategy. At first, lying feels unnatural. The first time she hides a message. The first time she makes an excuse. The first time she feels her heart race when her husband asks, "Who are you texting?" It feels wrong, but the human mind is terrifyingly adaptable. And after a while, the guilt turns into strategy. She gets better at covering her tracks. She compartmentalizes so well that she doesn't even feel guilty anymore. She starts believing her own lies. And this is where things spiral, because the longer the secret exists, the harder it is to escape. She might tell herself, I'll end it next week, next month, soon. But weeks turn into months. And by the time she realizes she's trapped in her own web, it's too late. The final shift, when marriage becomes secondary. Here's the ultimate shift in a woman's mind when she's gone too far. She stops seeing her marriage as her primary relationship. Her husband becomes the other man, the real connection, the real passion, the real intimacy. It's happening elsewhere. At this stage, even if she hasn't physically crossed the line, her heart already belongs to someone else. And when that happens, there are only two ways the story ends. 1, she gets caught. 2, she walks away from her marriage, unable to live a double life anymore. The unseen truth. So why are some married women the easiest prey? Because they're not looking to cheat. They're looking to feel something they lost. And once they find it, walking away feels impossible. Not because they don't love their husbands, but because they've convinced themselves that what they've found is something they'll never get back at home. And once that belief settles in, nothing will ever be the same again. So if you understand this truth, you hold power. The power to see what others miss. The power to read between the lines. The power to recognize the silent signals before they turn into something irreversible. And with that knowledge, you'll never be blind to the game again. This is Think Deeply. Until next time, take care and see you in the next video.